Hi, welcome back to CS 560. In this lecture, we will talk about divide and conquer algorithms. So, in the previous lecture, we used the divide and conquer approach to design the merge sort algorithm. Okay, so here we will have a brief review. We used three basic steps. First, we divide the problem into a number of subproblems that are smaller instances of the same problem. In the case of merge sort, we divide the sorting problem into two problems. Okay, we divide this input sequence into two halves, the first half and the second half, and we sort them individually by recursively call the algorithms. So the second step is called conquer. And in this step, we basically solve all the subproblems by solving them recursively. The third step is called combine, in which we combine the solutions to all the subproblems and into the solution for the original problem. And we basically have two cases to the problem, or have two ways to describe a problem. When the subproblems are large enough to solve recursively, we call that a recursive case. And if it's small enough and the recursion reaches the bottom, so in that case, we call it a base case. Okay, and in this lecture, we'll basically systematically introduce the family of divide and conquer algorithms and which problems can be solved by this kind of problems. We will have an idea of the basics, have the maximum sub-array problem. So in the next video, we're gonna introduce the problem of maximum sub-array problem, and we use an example to show how we design a divide and conquer algorithm to solve it. And we will also introduce another problem, matrix multiplication, which is also a very classical case that divide and conquer is applied. Okay, and the key terminology we're gonna use to describe the running time of a divide and conquer algorithm is recurrence, or the recurrence equation that we used in the previous lecture. So recurrence, it's short for recurrence equation. It basically gives a natural way to describe the running time of divide and conquer algorithms. And it is an equation or inequality that describes a function in terms of its value on smaller inputs. So remember the case for merge sorts. We let capital T of n to be the running time of solving the original problem. And we describe T of n in two cases. In the base case, in which n equals 1, that is the smallest case. So the running time is constant, big theta of 1 in that base case. If it's a recursive case or recurrent case in which the n is greater than 1, then we describe T of n in terms of 2 times T of n over 2. Because the subproblem, the size of the subproblem that we divided into is half the size of the original problem. And we have 2 of such subproblems. Okay, so that is the cost. The blue part is the cost for solving the original, for solving the subproblems. And the big theta of n, the yellow part here, it is the cost of merging the sorted sub-arrays back into the longer original sorted one, right? So that is the cost for the combined step. Well, so more generally speaking, we can have different sizes for the subproblems. The subproblems can be of different sizes, right? We can cut in the place of the 1/3 of the input, right? Like in this case, the running time of the original subproblem can be described of the running time on the first longer half, which is 2/3 of the original length, and the shorter half of the inputs. that depends on the algorithm and depends on the problem, right? Or the subproblems can even have a constant fraction, not necessarily to be a constant fraction. It can be like decrement by 1 each time we divide the problem. Okay, so here are just these two examples are just for examples. All right, and we sometimes use simplified technicalities in recurrences, because if we really consider the details, for example, in the merge sorts, when we choose the midpoints of the input sequence, right, we actually need to consider the it depends on whether the total length is even or odd number, right? So we need to use the ceiling and flooring operators, right? But just for simplification, we can ignore the floors, the cells, and other boundary conditions. So the boundary condition or the base case here is also can be ignored or simplified. So we can normally say that the recurrence of a merge sort looks like this way. Okay, so it is a very simplified version of it, because here it is 2 over n over 2, and we don't write the constant case here. Okay, and usually we can, if we describe the algorithm this way, and it still gives a overall sense of how the algorithms, the running time efficiency looks like. Okay, so we need to solve recurrences in order to get to have an idea of how fast or how efficient the algorithm is in terms of its running time. Okay, that is a problem we will learn how to solve in this lecture. Okay, and there are 3 types of methods we will talk about. The first is called substitution method. Okay, so in this method, we basically guess a bound or guess the solution. Okay, we have a solution and then we use mathematical induction. So mathematical induction is a technique that we need to use in order to prove our guess is correct. The second one is called recursion tree method. And in this method, we visualize the recurrence. We draw it into a tree, and in that tree structure, the nodes represent the costs at various levels of the recursion. And we compute the running time, the total running time, by summing up all the nodes in that recurrent tree. That is the second method. The third method is called the master method. So the master method is basically a general solution to recurrences of the form like this. Okay, so it provides a general template to solving problems like this. So whenever we have a recurrence in this form, the original problem, the running time of T of n is A times T of n over B. That means we have A subproblems each time we split the original problem, and the size of the subproblem is n over B. And the cost of dividing and conquer can be described by the function f of n. Okay, so whenever we have such a form, we can use master theorem. Okay, so that is the overall outline of this lecture. And the first, we will start by describing the problem of a maximum sub-array problem, and we will use an introductory level, introductory example.